recorded, and we'll also have captions available for people who may need it. Thank you. Marcus?
Hi, my name is Marcus. I am a visual effects supervisor by trade. Um, so I worked on many movies. These are some of them. Um, so going back 25 years now. And I was affected by the actors strike and the writer strike. So I've now started my own company, like many other visual effects artists in my field, and which I'll probably go into maybe later. Um, But that's about it. I mean, without going deep down the rabbit hole of these other projects I've been working on. Um,
Yeah,
just a
sounds
visual
good.
effects
Well,
guy
I'll just
doing
ask
visual
you,
effects.
like, how did you get into the field, maybe?
I studied it at university. I studied so I just pretty much fell into computer graphics. It was Manchester in England, and it was just at the end of the basically the heyday of visual effects where they were pulling people out of university. So I went and did an internship on my second year. I just turned up in Los Angeles with a backpack and knocked on every door. Amazingly, the last door let me come in and work for free. And then once you're in, you're in. So they realized after a few weeks of me buying Jamba Juice and cigarettes for them that I could actually do work on a computer. Um, and I did the work, went back, finished university, and I got a job straight out of college and went straight to Santa Monica, California. And yeah, the rest is history, really. I just kept chugging away, working hard. That's
Awesome.
it.
Thank you.
That's life.
We'll get back to you in a few seconds. Just want to jump back to Amanda Renee. So how did you get, that how did you start with, Techno Mobile?
Okay, so I started working with a non-government organization. I worked with a famous NGO known as Save the Children. I know most of you have heard it because it's an international organization. So I started journalism personally. So after graduating journalism, I worked in the field of journalism for something like 3 years, straight years, and then the coronavirus happened. So there was some sort of retrenchment, and then I worked with another NGO called WeWorld. It's an Italian organization. They were looking for a regional coordinator. So during the Corona strike, I wasn't afraid. So I started the journey of NGOs with the WeWorld from Italy organization. I worked with them as a regional coordinator in the northern part of Tanzania. It's called Mtwara. I've been there for 3 years also, and then I came to work with Save the Children. Then, after being there as a communication coordinator, working with multi countries, for example, with Kenya, with Mozambique in different projects, that is when Techno Mobile, I think, they saw like this person has the potential that fits the brand as someone with a. For Techno has this, I would say it's like the motto. It's called Stop at Nothing. So from the profile, from the LinkedIn, the way we met has been there advocating for things that I love the most, advocating for my spirit. So from that end, I believe is where Techno felt like the need to recruit me to their side. So for my end, I felt like it's something I could use. It's something for a change. From working with organization, from working with journalists, this time that I explore this other part of the corporate world, like how do they function, how do they work. So that's just the short thing about me. So from the NGO, from journalism to NGO, and now currently working with the corporate world.
Thank you so much. What about you, Lisa? What's your story?
So I have always just loved arts and culture. And I didn't study film in school, but I knew that I just wanted to kind of just be in what I could be. And then I live in Toronto, and here the largest kind of arts and culture thing is the Toronto Film Festival. And so I did everything that I could, volunteered. Eventually, I got a job there. And I was part of the team that helped to plan the festival. I loved it. It was amazing. And then learned a lot. From there, moved on to Warner Media, now Warner Brothers Discovery, where I helped to kind of start up their first Canadian office. Did a lot of their festival strategy because that was my background. And there I was mainly focusing on talent development for underrepresented Canadians. And I've always just had an interest in that as well, back when I was at TIFF too. And then there was this opportunity here at ACTRA. And it was again tied in that same vein of, in the industry, but supporting, all types of talent and trying to helping to bring different stories to the screen. And so, yeah, that's how I got here. Just love arts and culture. So here I
Thanks,
am.
thanks, Luisa. So, could you tell us more about your role at ACTRA? What does that entail?
Absolutely. So it is a role that wears many hats. It is, I do internal and external advocacy. Internally, it is, I talk to our members as a union. We are member driven. And so, our members reach out sharing about the different challenges that they may have. As a union, like we do have a constitution and bylaws, which as a staff member, I cannot change, but there are processes and things that I can advise on and to raise awareness so that the elected leadership can then help to change these. But then also externally, because I'm talking to our members, because I'm talking to writers, producers, I see where the challenges are, and then I go out into the industry to talk to the production companies, the funders, the different government organizations to talk about, here are the issues that we're seeing. Obviously, there's only so much that I can do. I have a very specific purview, with actors and within the union, but a lot of what we need to do to change things can be done in partnership. And so then, it is going out there and trying to create allyship and awareness of, did you know that this is a barrier that our members are facing? And here's a way that you could do away with that, or how this is how you can work with us. Sometimes it's with funding. Sometimes it's literally just, why don't you change the way that you're doing things? And so by being able to provide that context from our performers, we're able to see that change. It is a little tricky because, when it comes to productions, performers that are at a disadvantage as in positions of power, where, it is the producer that is calling the shots, the producer is the person that is hiring you. And so it's harder for a performer to sometimes stand up for themselves, especially when, you come from a marginalized or underrepresented background. And so I'm able to then kind of be that person, because I have a seat at the table where, I'm not getting hired to act on a show. And so I can reach out to that production, to that casting director and say, this is what I'm hearing from members. This is what I'm seeing. Here's, why don't we do something about this? And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But, I would say that we've been able to just generate greater awareness and been able to change some things as well.
Yeah, okay. So does that mean that if I'm a performer right now working on set, I can just, and I'm having a challenge related to DIA, I can just reach out to you and you can support me? Like, can you do anything about it?
So if it's a union production, yes. So our jurisdiction are union production. So if it's an ACTRA, so ACTRA Canada-wide, but you would reach out to your local branch. So if this is shooting in Alberta, you'd reach out to ACTRA Alberta. But yeah, that is what we ask performers. And it's not just, if you're an underrepresented performer, if there's any issue that's happening on set, you have to let us know so that we can do something about it. We're not on set. We do have our IPA, which is basically the contract that we just negotiated with the producers, where it says what you're supposed to do, what you're not supposed to do, that you're supposed to have meal breaks, that there's supposed to be, washrooms on set. Also, what the minimum payment is, how much of like a leeway there should be from when you get a casting call gets put out and when you're supposed to submit it. All of those things are in there. These rules are not always followed. And so then we can enforce them, but we have to know. There's also instances, absolutely, when somebody will reach out with an issue and, there isn't a clear path for us to be able to be like, okay, that is not what we agreed to with the producer, so we can do something about it now, but it helps us to know so that then down the path, we're like, what, we keep hearing this from performers. There's obviously a gap right now in what we have. What is it that we can do? And, normally it's taking that, we negotiate every 3 years. So it's taking that to the next round of negotiations. But in the meantime, can we have a chat with, and I'll just say producer, to be like, what, like we're hearing this from performers. There's a lot of concern there. What can we do about it? So there's different ways, but the main thing is we're not the ones on set. So yes, we absolutely do want to know what's happening and let us know right away, because if you tell us, oh, this thing happened 3 years ago, it would have been much easier for us to be able to know right as the production was happening, for us to then be able to go do something about it.
Thanks, Luisa. Just another question related to that. Like, if I'm from the producer end, like, when in what instances, I imagine if I want to, sign a contract, find actors or performers, but like once the set starts, once the production starts, what kind of relationship do we have?
Yeah, so I mean, it starts much before that, where you first have to sign a contract with us in order to be able to access our performers. And if you are a first-time producer, we have a team of very knowledgeable and dedicated business reps that can walk you through, the paperwork. What does it mean? Here are the things to consider. You have stunts in your scripts, so you need to get a stunt coordinator. So there's all of that. Once, the production, oh, and before that as well, sometimes productions are looking to casts from specific communities and they don't know where to go, how to reach that community. That's where I come in. I hold a lot of different relationships with different community groups. And so, it's like, share the casting call with me and then I can help to amplify it, but then also have a conversation as to, have you considered going here to, look for your cast, or have you thought maybe about doing this? Sometimes productions will have questions about the language and the casting breakdowns. And, we do not dictate the creative of a production. That is the production's purview, but they can reach out to me specifically in this role where I can advise, I can provide resources of, if you're looking to hire from this community, here's the language that is normally used and here are the resources for you to then tap into for that. And then, when the production happens, then if the production gets sold, and so there's going to be perhaps further payments for our performers, there's going to be residuals, and so that wouldn't be with then the film and TV department here. There's a different team that then collects residuals and all of that. And it is, once you start a relationship with us, producers then will reach out to be like, hey, I'm thinking of doing this. Would that work under ACTRA? And so it is starting a relationship with us to them, for us to be able to guide you, let you know what's possible, what's not, and also provide you with ideas of like, okay, you want to do this, but your budget only lets you do that. Let's find a way to get there so that you get the final product that you want and you're able to work with our performers as well.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That was very, very insightful, important information there. For those who are just joining us, right now we are in a webinar called Pixels and Complexions, which is the first episode of, I hope, a multi-episode series with professionals from the industry. Today, our focus is leveraging technological advancements for skin tone representation. We are with Amadarenea Nemes for TECNO Mobile Tanzania. We are with Luisa Alvarez Restrepo from ACTRA Toronto and Marcus LeVere from Savepoint. You have also Q&A available if you want to ask questions as we go. As they're popping in, I will also try to introduce them into our discussion here. For those who need it, we have captions available as well. Marcus, please, you have 25 years of experience working in visual effects. You must have seen some changes there, right? Like between the way you were working, even with characters. I know you're doing more of the background stuff, but like if you can just tell us how
Yeah.
things have
Um,
evolved for you.
so visual effects is normally just at the end of the pipeline, and we just deal with everything that comes to us. Um, I've certainly seen some issues with skin tones, and some adjustments needed to be made on set. And I know we discussed before the idea that that educational part of the technique and the technology to film faces properly of different skin tones is hopefully improving, that the teaching is being improving in universities and working groups. But for me, how it affects me now, because really the visual effects industry is fairly dormant at the moment. During this kind of slowdown, many companies have gone under. My focus has really been on SavePoint, which I didn't really give you much of a background on that. Should I give you a little demo? So this thing behind me is actually a scanner. So basically, this is a mobile scanner that I bring onto set or to the talent, and I scan them in and train a machine learning model on their face. So one of the obviously you can think straight away the downside of this is, okay, people that scan their faces and own their likeness and put their AI versions in shows or commercials in any language, won't they crowd out the market and we won't have new talent turn up? And that's certainly been a main focus of my outreach to make sure that there's fair representation of people that are getting ahead into this type of technology. Because we don't want to be stuck with 60-year-old Tom Cruise forever, because that may well happen, right? He's like, oh, it's great. I love everything he sells, and I trust his face, so I'll just keep sticking with him. And especially if they end up reducing those costs, because it's not really Tom Cruise, it's an AI version of him. You could imagine that they could drop the price. So I've made a big focus to outreach to underrepresented communities to make sure they understand this technology is here. So at my previous company, I was the director of innovation at a large visual effects company. I had 7 locations, I think. And I built a team of 13 machine learning engineers, and we were building these types of techniques and systems. And the company itself was already doing these types of face replacements on, I think it was Picard and Cobra Kai at the time. And we do face replacements all the time for stunts, right? So it's a very natural part of our workflow, but the way we used to do it was much more crude compared to this now AI face swapping technology we're using. So that's it really. My main focus is to spread awareness that this technology is there, and to help as much as I can to have people in scanning themselves and being represented there.
So could you explain how it actually works?
Oh, yeah, sorry. So I bring this scanner to the talent, and I upload their data to a secure Microsoft Azure normally, and I train a machine learning model. So this is Chukwumodu, an actor, one of the main actors in The Good Doctor, and this is completely AI. That's not him at all. That's actually me puppeteering him for a test. So now he can appear in any product, any commercial, any media, without physically being there. That's the key. So basically, what happens is everything goes through his agent. So if his agent has made a deal, some licensing deal for his likeness, I will talk to that production company that has that deal. They would send me video. I would do the face swap, and I'd send those to his agent for his approval, and then that goes back to the production company. So basically, they would have a body double that does his work for him at this high level. You can have talking avatars, which you may have seen, that can look straight at screen and look a little bit off. This is one step above that. This is what we normally use for stunt replacements or something like that, where it's a much higher quality and you need a body double with the right head shape, approved wardrobe and hair, that's lit and directed on set. And we just do the face swap. That's how it works. Yeah.
Okay, so but how do you get, like, without necessarily going into all the technical details, but how do you get from like a camera that is captured, like how many cameras even do you have on your?
There are 15 cameras in here, capturing about 10 minutes in the scanner, but you do it in bursts. So basically, it's taking hundreds of thousands of images of you and then training machine learning model. It's really actually just basic deepfake software, which has been around for a while, but it's more advanced than that. It's a little bit better than the public deepfake software that you've seen abused. But it's really about the quality of the data set that goes into the system. So instead of illegal images that you've grabbed off the internet, these are tailored to work with the software. So you're giving all the different lighting directions and face shapes, as it were, permutations that you then feed into the machine learning models to learn every single aspect of that person's face.
Okay. So what difference is there between that and let's say when we're using those AI generators for images, like if I load in a photo and then get something out of that.
Yeah, so those are diffusion models are basically taking noise and trying to derive an image from those, um, learning from all the other images that it's learnt from the internet, learnt or stolen from the internet. This is slightly different in that it's taking a data set of someone that's providing their data into the system, and is learning um, all of the interactions of that person's face with light and comparing those to a corpus of images that I've collected.
Right.
So it can kind of correlate those together, and it learns everything about that face and puts it into model weights, basically.
Okay. Thank
I
you.
did get a bit
Yeah,
technical.
we'll get back to it a little bit after stopping by Luisa for a little more context from the performer's side. But before we get there, I have a question here for you, Marcus. Um, I'm a 3D animator with experience in television, film, and e-learning. While the recent industry strike presented challenges, I'm focused on expanding my skill set and exploring new professional avenues by leveraging my existing experience and enhancing my soft skills. The rapid growth of AI applications is both promising and overwhelming. I'm seeking advice on where to prioritize my learning to stay current with technological advancements. What apps should I start with? Best tutorials.
Um, Number one is use a standard large language model as your sidekick and pay the money and do that now, because that will 10x your productivity. So whichever one you want to pick, because they are all kind of competing, whether it's Grok or ChatGPT or Google Gemini, Deep Research, basically just pay for one of them, and that's the kind of cost of entry. Um, in regards to visual effects itself, it is a very tough business right now. It's very much in flux. Um, I wish I could give you better advice onto what software to use and to learn. I came from a 3D background, so I still, understand 3D software, and then moved into compositing more as I was supervising. Um, and so those are the two main tools, which is generally Maya and Nuke by the Foundry. So at a professional level, you have to understand those tools very, very well. What is becoming very interesting is utilizing uh, a chat GPT to interact with those pieces of software. So it used to end up, you'd sit with a big, thick manual next to you, and you'd sit there and work, and you'd flick through the manual. If you couldn't figure out the manual, you'd shout out to the crew around you, and they'd guide you into how to get these tasks done. And it would take a long time, and it'd be very expensive for a client. And the machines used to be very expensive. And then it turned into, okay, I just have to Google the answer instead of looking in the manual. And now it's you basically collaborate with a large language model, not just to get you the answer, but also to automate the results. So quite a lot of what we're doing is we do something and we try and do it very quickly the next time, or try to do a few steps in advance. Really, our focus in visual effects is to create flexibility for the director. So you're always building, whatever you're building, you're always thinking, okay, when the director changes her mind, how can I accommodate that to not ruin the budget of my company doing the visual effects? So quite often you end up using code to do that. So using the chat GPT to help you write that code and build those variabilities into that. So basically, what I personally did, I got really the chat GPT in 2023 very, very deeply, like locked myself in a room, and it felt like the Matrix, just downloading Kung Fu into my head. A couple of times I'd come upstairs and look at my wife and said, that was way too much of a download. I've learned too much. And I had many months of that, to be honest with you. It was quite shocking back in 2023 when it started. But from that, I 10x my productivity, as I said, and created web applications. I created an application called OpenBid, which is very, very large. It's in the Google Marketplace. So basically, just grab ChatGPT and use it to accelerate anything you're interested and focused on. Because that's what will keep you working long term or keep at it. I really had a passion project, so I was happy to, spend 6 months in the basement with ChatGPT to help me achieve my goal. And basically kind of keep yourself moving and tread water until the industry's more clear. Really, keep improving your skills because everyone else is doing it, ChatGPT right now, very deeply. So just keep abreast of that. I wouldn't worry about trying to get into certain specific applications, because if my gut feeling is that ChatGPT or these big conglomerates, as Adobe and other ones that are using diffusion models, are just going to eat everyone else's lunch. So just make sure you're abreast of the big ones. Very long answer, sorry.
No, great answer. Thank you so much. We'll get back into that. But first I want to stop by Amadarenea talking about smartphones. So slightly less techy, but still quite a lot in many ways. Could you explain the work that you've done at TECNO Mobile in relation to skin tone representation?
Yes, thank you, Dan. So from our end, TECNO has been there for very many years. I followed TECNO since I was born. So being there from start of time, there have been misrepresentation of colors, like different tones that have been presented differently when it comes to the smartphone and technology world. So with TECNO, we've started addressing that historical bias when it comes to the portraying of the skin tones. So I could say it started with the True Tone campaign that was done last year. It was just the beginning because this algorithm was integrated into the two main big products, like the Common 40 series and the Phantom series, that they would represent a person based on who they are and how they look like, without any preference like to the lighter skin or preference to the other skin tones. So to address the diverse, there were studies that was done doing researches at universities, working with different technicians and people with high knowledge when it comes to the true tone and tone representation. So from this research, of which you don't need research to understand this, people have always preferred the lighter skin better. People have always tried to edit their portrait when it comes to to the smartphone world. So from that editing, from that misrepresentation, is when that TECNO decided to start addressing these steps. And it is not something that we're not there yet. So we believe with this progress, day by day researchers from what Marcus has presented, we believe these are just the steps that we're taking into addressing the tone issue. So we started with a campaign last year, of which was the product of the research that was done by researchers, by the universities. So we started prioritizing each skin must be presented as how they are in our products. Currently, we say that is well done in the two products, that is the two phones, the Camel 40 and the Phantom, but we are still working to get that into other devices as well, because we have other lines of product, like three of them that do not have the true tone. So we believe with this research, we can address the bias, we can come to a way that one image is portrayed as how they are. Like, this is what you look like. And when you take a picture in this device, this is how you look like. So you can find the people with multiple skin tone that are in the picture. But the way they're represented, you can find that they all have I would say this, like they have the similar look, but that's not how it is like in the real eyes. So with this, we're trying to see every complexion is well presented in our smartphone. So we are doing this by the AI algorithm that we are trying to impact the balance, the accuracy, to avoid the overexposure and exposure in the mobile imaging. So we are doing that day by day. We have tried doing that currently. We had this sort of focus group discussion. We had them set aside. We give them the research, like you give them the question, they start filling in. How do they feel with this image? Like you give them several images that define them. I mean, have their image, but portrayed in a different skin tone. And then you ask them, like, how do you feel when you're presented here? How do you feel about this? They will share their ideas, like they will comment on how they look and how in different tones until you find someone being like, now this is the real me, but previous images, that was not me. And why is this happening? So we are trying to drive this conversation into having other mobile companies addressing that issues as well. Like multi-skin tone have to be presented in this mobile imaging. We're trying to see inclusivity in all mobile devices. So we started as a concept, working with different researchers, working with different focus group from different countries, trying to see if they are addressing the issue of skin tone. So from this end, we believe the campaign was well done. And from our research, we have almost 268 tones that were discovered from the research. And with these tones, we believe that once every mobile device has accepted these tones, has integrated these tones into their mobile imaging, it will be a point where a black person is a black person, a light skin is a light skin. Every complexion will be well addressed in their imaging. So with this campaign, it's still ongoing. I can share the link maybe after this, where one can take a picture, upload it, and discover what tone is yours. And then you can write a comment like, how do you feel with that presentation? Is it worth it? Is it your true tone? Or do you think there is more that can be done?
Mhm.
So that's the little bit about how it started.
Okay, thank you. I guess there are a lot of questions that come into play when we're talking about skin tone bias and technology, which are, like the device that we're using to, even watch the image, or even like, is should we define accuracy based on what I see? Should we define it based on what the equipment sees? Should we base it on like an overall understanding of, like how people are supposed to look like in one place or another, depending on the lighting? So how are you navigating the subjective dimensions of like, addressing and evaluating and assessing skin tone representation?
Okay, so how do we do that? You see, for us, it's not like how do you see yourself on the other side? Like, how do you see yourself? Is this your reflection in this image?
Mm-hmm.
So we did not come to a conclusion that we define you based on the looks or the image that you see on the other end. So this is where you see yourself like, I feel light skinned. And with this mobile imaging, the light, the lightness of my skin tone is well presented. So it's not that we have the scale of measuring like this is accurate, this is not accurate. Like accuracy lies beyond the eyes. Like you're the one who you see your reflection. So is this you? Is this what you feel like? Is this image, based on what you want, is this image really, is this image really your reflection? So we started with that. So we can say that because it's an ongoing process, we listen to what people say, we take in the comments, we research more on the comments. So how we take the likeness of how one looks like is, if you accept this is your skin tone, we take that into consideration. But if you feel you look different from what the image has presented, there is a room for more research. There is a room for us to ensure that inclusive is well done and based on the experience, that someone can just decide like this is okay, this is not okay. So we are still trying to get there to a point, but what you see is what you like, and that's the real you. So since you're heading there, I believe there is more that we can do.
Thank you so
We are
much.
researching to expand that algorithm.
Yeah. Thanks. We'll get back to that as well. Luisa, we started talking about deep fakes, about, like a lot of AI generated images and all that. So how does those technology affect your world there at ACTRA?
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, AI, deepfakes, all of that definitely affects our performers. For us, the main thing is that we want our performers to have control, consent, and to get compensation. When it comes to AI, many people see it as like, oh, you can just get a performance out of this, but that performance is taking somebody's likeness. It is taking somebody's acting ability and then going off of that to create something. And so it is the recognition that this wasn't just randomly created, but that a performer, and that is where then the consent, a performer has to consent to, their likeness being used and also how it's being used, because it can also have really dire repercussions for performers, especially if, you're from a certain community that feels very strongly about something political that is going on, let's say, and then without your consent, your image is out there for a show or something that has views that you wouldn't be comfortable saying because it might have implications for you and your family who maybe, live in a different country, or you just don't want to say that. And you would be able to do that on a set if, when a script is being presented to you. So there's that as well. There's also, we want to ensure that performers don't feel that they have to agree to being scanned for AI in order to get on a show. And that is something that in our last round of bargaining with the producers, that we wanted to make very clear that you book the performer because you book the performer, and then their employment is not then. And this has happened to a lot of background performers where they weren't told. It's like, oh, and now this is part of your job. Now you're getting scanned. Now their likeness is out there making money for productions that are using them as background. But this performer, this is their livelihood. And now that has been taken away. And so again, that's where the compensation piece comes in. It also then, prevents from finding new talent, where if you just have this go-to is yeah, this is what I'm always going to use because this can do this and that, you're not then seeing new faces. You're not seeing new talent that's going out there. And then there's also how you're using AI beyond, if you are then just being like, oh, I'll just get a digital replica and that's it. But it's also when, for example, if you're using AI to create maybe a cast list of people that would be good for your film. It's I'm going to have this action film. And so I'm going to go to ChatGPT, let's say, and I just want to know what actors would they recommend for an action film so that I'm going to do really well in the box office. Well, the data is going to be skewed because we have, biases within our industry that have favored a certain gender, skin tone, identity. And so it's going to tell you, oh, well, you need to cast, nothing is Tom Cruise, but somebody like Tom Cruise or Tom Cruise in this. And so this completely erases the fact that there could be really great talent out there that doesn't look like Tom Cruise, but you're just kind of feeding into this bias and these, racist notions as well, that this person, because of they sound this way, they look this way, they identify this way, cannot be the leading person for this, cannot be the love interest, cannot be, again, the action star. And so AI can have many different implications, a lot of them negative, because it is either then you're taking work away from performers or you're using it to make casting decisions that are then informed by bias, by an industry that has not been super representative in the past. And so it represents a bad thing, really, just because people that are using them aren't thinking about, this is a tool that it has been fed by very specific data that is biased. Then what can I be doing for that? And right now, if you look at media, let's say, yeah, it's I want a Hollywood blockbuster. That's going to look a very specific way that, other films have proven that it doesn't have to be that way, but they don't become the norm. And so still the majority of the data is going to tell you, for example, you know what, Luisa, this Colombian, she can't lead, an action film. Maybe I could, but you're using this data that is biased to then make those decisions. You're not seeing the talent. You're not bringing them into the room. You're not out there scouting. You're just relying on data, computers, and a complete lack of interaction with the actual talent to then be able to see what's possible out there. And also to think maybe I, as the producer, want to do something different. But then the data is going to kind of make you think, oh, maybe I don't, because Hollywood's not going to like it. And so again, just kind of this vicious cycle.
Okay, I have a
Yeah, I think Louisa has a very good point there. I agree with everything you've said. Uh, I'm hoping, because we have to try and remain somewhat optimistic, that this democratization of content creation, which we've seen over the past 6 years, maybe 10 years, um, is going to increase, and everyone will be creating better and better quality content or being able to produce some content. I mean, all of us are content creators, even when we leave a comment on something, right? It depends on how much video you video you record of yourself and publicize. I'm really hoping that these movements, I think there's one called Green Light Yourself. There's a few others that are trying to get communities and groups to basically greenlight themselves and make their own projects. I think I'm trying to hope that an old set of basically old companies to do right by us, I think is maybe naive. I think we have to do it ourselves, and at least we've got all the tools behind us that are pushing us to help us to create content ourselves. Um, Maybe we can't afford the visual effects for the exploding UFOs, but um, I think maybe we will soon, right? I think it's on our side. So I'm hoping that will save us.
I hear what you're saying, and look, I wouldn't do what I do if I didn't have hope that we
Yeah.
can change things, absolutely. But then it is that where's the funding coming from? Can a TikTok creator that's creating their own web series then compete with somebody that is getting $180 million for something and is going to be pushed out to the entire world? And so then it is about obviously then having people at the table that are able to raise these issues and us holding them accountable to this as well, where, there is obviously, we all, as you mentioned, have more and more opportunities to create our own content. But we should also be getting the funding to create, like the blockbusters and everything. And why not? And that comes down to the decision makers right now that might be using this data to say, oh no, not the Colombian film, because people aren't going to watch that. And so it is then us using collective power as well, and voting with our dollars type of thing to say this is what we want to see. And then when, for example, something comes out in theaters that is from these communities, going to see it, paying to watch it. But then also, we got to have different people in decision-making roles that are aware of this, that do understand the biases, and then are, that it's not the old guard saying, well, this has always worked, therefore we'll just keep it this way.
I mean, it's an inherently risk-averse industry, though, right? Because the bets are so big that they
Mhm.
just can't have a missed bet. They just always have to be secure. So, um, I mean, I think people are voting with their dollars and their eyeballs. I mean, you look at Mr. Beast's Beast games that came out on Prime. Um, I think there are going to be a group of content creators that just go rise to the top and become ultra famous like that and can kind of drive their
But
um
if you look at how those content creators look, normally the ones that are rising to the top, I'd say there isn't a great diversity there, though there are some. And so
indeed.
even in that space, as you're talking about, like this is democratized, there's still biases there. There's still, kind of like somebody who's more lighter skinned is likely going to get more views.
Yeah,
And I know that's not always the case. And so I hear you, the bias is still there.
yeah, it is there. And uh, it it is it's a very difficult thing to address as well because it is there, it's in all of us, in every community, right? We the reason why we like 60-year-old Tom Cruise is because we all like him, right? And we all trust him. So
I grew up watching Tom Cruise. Like
exactly, right. So
fully.
the it's very difficult to have those things work externally because we just naturally, I will buy, that product that has that person on it because I'm used to it happening. There's more subtle underlying things going on. Um, I, I was kind of pitching to Deanne that okay, we have to have more people that look like us to drive these budgets and drive these companies, and I think we are going to see that happening. But there's also the other side of that where we're still focusing on a country that's mostly Caucasian because that's where we apart from. But what about other countries, right? Boosting their productivity, boosting their output, right? Like all across Africa, seeing more content coming out from them. I know Netflix Africa has been making a big push over the past 5 years. So yeah, I think these conversations I hope they'll blend out a little as we see better content coming from other countries into ours. Like, for example, I just love that Physical 100 show from, I think it's Korea. Have you seen that? I
Yeah.
I just had to binge watch that the first time. So I think um, they're making an effort to see which viral things will come from different countries, and I think that will help in the mix. I hope that will help in the mix.
Yeah, and I mean, look, like there's great content being created all across the world right now. It is then, is it reaching our screens because the decision makers are not then showing it to us? And that is where then, online different social media platforms can kind of bring that content to us. But then it goes back to what you were saying, where like it is risk averse. And so even if you know, the Physical 100 or I don't know, Sacred Games in India or whatever is like it's doing really well and people are binging it, but we're not gonna do it here. So it's that as well where, the proof is there. Whereas like, and it is like I can speak for Latin American right now. They love Indian and Turkish soap operas. And like so it's like this is traveling there. So why aren't we doing something like that, for example? Like, but so it's that as well, where we see the content is working. This is amazing. The content is going across, different continents and everything, but yet the decision makers still refuse to see that, like, okay, but people want to see this content. Should we be investing in that type of content? No, 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 we're good. We'll just keep doing the thing that we're doing.
Yeah, that's actually why I think the contribution of Amadarenea was also an interesting case study because the way you started wasn't just from, oh, well, let's do this because you thought from the very beginning that things had to be that way. You had also a journey listening to your audience, before you end up in that research to start working on your products and stuff. Could you talk a little bit more about that? Sorry, about that context that led to the work that you've done on your algorithms.
Okay, so I will talk on the end, like for us, TECNO Mobile worked with one university. I was trying to look for its name so I can share with you guys, but I'm afraid I'm not able to get that, but it's all over in the website. So we worked with this professor who was leading in the arts of university, like talking with students about their representation in the media, how do they portray themselves. So from this end is when Techno integrated with his research, and together they came up with a universal tone conversation. It started with a research, as I said before. So this research has had different opinion from different university students. That is not just one university. They integrated two universities that they did the research. And with this conversation is when the inclusion part started, like associating it with the mobile algorithm, having the images well represented, having this algorithm work into identifying one's look, one's color, and how are they going to interpret those pixels together to come up with this perfect image that represents your color. So with this is how it started. So I'm just having the top information about it because I was trying to get the conversation so I could share even the PowerPoints, even the videos, but I was unable due to different reasons. But as I said, this is all over the website that you could read. Like professors did the research, the university students shared their opinions, they did this focus group discussion and trying to come up with this algorithm, including people who work in the technology part of the mobile imaging. Our mobile phones are powered by the Sony sensors. So working with Sony has us having this proud of our presentation in the phones, like our mobile imagings. We pride ourselves in it because we believe they're better than any other mobile device. So we have the common series that is the famous for the camera. We know within this phone, every pixel matter, every pixel is counted. So we know your tone in this product is well presented. All this came within just from a research. As Luisa and Marcus were discussing on how this content had be done every day, like how these content creators are using our devices. So there is a need for us to give them a point of pride, a point for them to feel like this is something I could look at. This is the content that, for example, you know that best quality contents are now pushed further for more audience. So if my camera quality does not, I mean, my mobile imaging does not define who I am, it's hard for me to be loyal to this brand. It's hard for me to keep using this device over and over in my content day to day. So I will look for something that is even better. So with this research, as I said, it's still ongoing, has enabled us to come up with a proper presentation that is still trying, we are still trying to integrate it in our other devices so that each person has that pride of using our product at first and also using this content growth to be able to be proud of how they're portrayed in our device. So as to enable like the quality, the picture, the imaging, the portrait, it's well and good. So it's something that someone can post about. It's something that someone can say, this is my tone. So now we're here in this conversation. This is also part of the progress. Like
Mhm.
with this conversation, I know we'll get a lot of people trying to understand our product, trying to understand how the True Tone works, how the universal campaign works. So that's it. I would say about the project. I mean, about how we're doing, how we're getting on into this conversation of universal tone.
Yeah, thank you for that. I think for me, what one of the things that really strikes me in your approach is the way you actually listen to your audience at the beginning, because that's for me that's the connection with the conversation we were having just like a few seconds ago, like having people saying, "Oh, I'm looking at this camera, and this is actually not working for me." And getting to the point that, oh, actually, we'll listen to you and we'll try. It may not be perfect now. It may take some time, but we'll actually take some steps and we'll engage you in that process. I think that
Yes.
Luisa, you were sharing also like a lot of different steps that led you to a lot of initiatives that are, happening right now at ACTRA, from those conversations that you were having with the sector as well, right?
Yeah, and also just quickly, Amadarenea, I love what your company's doing, and it's that there is a market for this, and it wasn't being served, and so you are, and that is in the conversations that I have with the industries, like the audience is there, you're not tapping into it, so like money that you're leaving on the table. Like I'm not asking you to do this out of charity. It is literally like a bad business decision for you to then not, have better representation so that you have a wider audience to tap into, and not even just within Canada, but the rest of the world. Because, within Canada, we have so many different identities and ethnicities and countries represented. And so you could be tapping into that, but productions keep choosing not to do that. Why? I don't know. Like from a business perspective, doesn't make sense to me. But in terms of initiatives, I mean, yeah, so we support a lot of different organizations, and we have some of our own. It is, I don't know if you want me to like go into specifics, or what were
Yeah,
you thinking?
so yeah, because in our previous conversation, we've talked about a lot of things that are happening within makeups and the initiatives that you've been taking for that to happen. And now with AI, the initiative that you've been taking to, just change the way we're thinking, creating processes that are available to people. So just letting everyone know about the things that you're doing on that realm.
For sure, thank you. I mean, one of the big things are actually the wins that we've been able to get in hair and makeup. And it comes from performers telling us what their experiences were. And unfortunately, they were not positive. They would show up on set, and the hair and makeup person just did not have the skill set for their skin tones, for their features, for their hair. Some of our Black performers were having their hair damaged just because the knowledge wasn't there. And so it required a lot of effort, a lot of us, talking to the producers, and we eventually were able to get agreement from the producers on, several steps forward. One of them being that performers will be compensated for if, for example, they have to do their own hair and makeup, because before, especially Black performers, would have to wake up hours before any other performer did, because they knew that the person on set did not know how to work with their hair. And so, they're up early trying to do whatever, if the production wants them to have cornrows, and then they've discovered that the person that was hired to do their hair does not know how to do that. So now this performer is waking up at 5 a.m., let's say, because they have a 10 a.m. call time. And the inequity of that, where a different performer who didn't have textured hair could just, get a good night's sleep, go on set, then sit on, the makeup chair and just like have their hair and makeup done, and that's that. As opposed to like the anxiety and also like the lack of sleep that performers are having here. And so, these things that we've gotten the producers to agree to, it is so that eventually we're at a place where the person that is on set will know how to do it. But in the meantime, if they don't, then you're paying performers for their time. Or, if they agree to do it themselves, or you are then arranging for them to go have this done by a professional. We're also then working with the government on here in Ontario. I am Ontario based. With basically just passing a requirement for schools that are teaching hair and makeup for the industry, that they need to learn how to work with textured hair. Right now it is kind of like a special, like you get to learn about it. It's like, no, this is not a special thing. Like this is just, it is a core skill set that you need to have. And so it should be treated that way in the curriculum. And so, working with them to update the curriculum on that, working with producers to ensure that they know what everybody should have in their kit. And so, if they're going to work with, again, more textured hair, maybe they want an afro, well, they should have a pick in their kit, or like they should have a diffuser if they're working with curls. So it is all of this. And so that, we want to ensure that people have the right knowledge. And so somebody's like, oh, I just didn't know what to ask. It's like, can't say that, because you're going to have the list of products that should be standard. You also should have all of the skin tones when it comes to, your makeup person. And so it's a lot of different things there. Again, this, because as a union, we can't just tell everybody what to do. There are agreements, there's bargaining that we do. And so this took some time, and this took a lot of courage from our members to come forward, because again, they are in a precarious situation where it's like, if I speak up too much, this production may not hire me again. So it was a lot of, again, just courage to say this happened and this isn't right. And it was a lot of, then us just knocking on that door saying like, you can't keep doing this, you can't keep doing this, until finally we're able to get that. We got protections for background performers as well in our last round of bargaining, where like you also can't ask, normally for a background, you ask to come camera ready, kind of do your hair makeup. But if you're asking to have very time consuming, hairstyles, again, you can't do that. Like you have to, then you pay for that. And so it is a lot of that, where recognizing the inequity of it, that, what you're asking for means something different for a different community, and you need to recognize that. And so it's not just somebody with maybe more straight hair is like, oh, I just threw my hair in a ponytail. That's different than, again, like I've been asked to have cornrows. That takes time. And so it's that there as well. And then it is working with, we also just support different organizations within the industry that are working on, changing the industry. So we partner with the Disability Screen Office, with Real World, with Real Asian, to, again, these are all organizations that are doing this type of work. And so sometimes we partner with them, sometimes we bring them along for something that we're doing. And we also have a lot of conversations about, okay, what is your community finding? What is it that we can do? Or what is it that we can then take from this and bring out into the industry to try to create this change?
You were also talking earlier about the three C's. So I know you were, again, in a previous conversation mentioning that issue around actors, performers not even understanding what was happening because they were signing contracts that had a lot of things already embedded in it. So yeah, could you go back and just explain the process that you've taken to make change in the sector?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that exactly that, where it's like, all right, you're hired, you sign the contract, and in there it's embedded as like, and so now we own your likeness type of thing. And that is, I mean, that's not fair, and that's sneaky. And so it is that control, consent, compensation, where you're hired and that is one thing. Then separately, there is a different contract where you are being asked to then, have yourself scanned. But then if you don't agree to that, that shouldn't then be contingent. Like your job shouldn't be contingent on that. You know, you've been hired for a production because they like how you act. And so that should be that. And then even if you do agree to it, this doesn't give the producer carte blanche to be like, okay, now I get to put you in absolutely every single thing that I'm going to make forever. But it's like, you know, then it is the control of it. We're like, no, I don't want to be in that. But also, you have to pay me if I agree to be in that. You don't just get to be like, it's good, I get to save money here, because this is somebody's work. You know, you want them there because you like how they perform, you like the work that they do. If it's background, you like their look. And so you want to have a lot of people in the background. That's great. You have to pay them. And so it is with that where, you know, protections around that, because it doesn't just mean that then you get to do whatever you want. This is somebody's likeness, which, you know, they own, it is theirs. And so then it is having that conversation with, this is what I'm looking to do for this show, you know, really liked what you did there. But of course, you know, for us, bring the person in. Like when it comes to creative things, like that's when you get a lot of really great performances, when it's that unexpected thing. Whereas like, you know what, we're on set, we're talking back and forth, and this performer said, like, what if I try this? You're not gonna get that out of AI. You will just use prompts and you might have a very clear view of what you think you want, but that's not what creativity is. And so then it is having, you know, the person included in the creative process, because that is what's going to get you, you know, over that, like, oh my God, I didn't know like that was a way to do it. That's such a cool idea. AI is not going to do that for you.
That is a great transition to me explaining a little more about inclusive pixels. I see a few questions in the chat as well. So after that, I'll go through the questions we have in the chat. So I'll quickly share my screen here. Sorry, just a second. There we go. Can you all see my screen? And you see prototyping inclusive? Is that what you see?
So I think we're just seeing your desktop right now.
Okay, so my bad. I'll try again. Sorry about that. Now, are you seeing?
Yes.
Right. Thank you. So this is not at all the design that we'll have, but just to let people know what Inclusive Pixels is about. So we are trying to create a platform for education related to skin tone representation, whether that means tech side, whether that means policies, working together, developing best practices, etc. So right now, this is an example of the AI assistant we're working on. So we're trying to create a retrieval augmented generation framework, meaning that we're just trying to add a lot more resources that the AI assistant would tap into to provide answers that are more considerate of the experience of the people out there. Because one of the challenges that you were actually mentioning, Luisa, earlier was the bias that we have embedded in our AI systems. But also, this bias is also related to the fact that we don't have that many resources out there. So a lot of the work that we're actually doing, that we've been doing till now, is through focus groups like you, Amadarenea, because that's the only way. I mean, we need to talk to people. We need focus group interviews, whatever that looks like, but we need human-to-human interactions to then start, having answers like, this is just an example. I am seeing all these debates about AI generated images that are becoming more and more realistic. I don't understand what the issue is. And here we have AI systems often reflect the biases present in their training data. If the data sets are not diverse, the AI models may fail to accurately represent certain skin tones or ethnic features. There's another example here. Is it okay to cast a South American actor to play an Asian character if they can pass as Asian? And this example was also based on questions we had in the focus groups, the things that we've addressed collectively. Here we have, for example, accurately representing a character's ethnicity involves more than visual similarity. It encompasses cultural knowledge, lived experiences, and authentic representation, etc. So the idea behind that is to have a platform where we can start the conversations, because some of the things that were expressed during the focus groups was, oh, I'm tired of always being the go-to person every time they have odd questions to ask about, my community, whether that community, whatever that community is. But like, because I'm Black, because I'm disabled, because I'm queer, because I'm whatever, now I have to become the voice for all that. And, also even accept harm because I know that the only way to move forward is to actually answer the question. But the question makes me so uncomfortable, and I can't show that I'm uncomfortable because there's a power dynamic. I may lose my job. What happens? So everyone in the focus group have said, if we could just have, a platform where we can go to, where we can tell people, okay, could you just go there, learn there, and then come back for the conversation. I'm changing the wording a bit, but, like you get the idea. So this is the goal of these AI systems. There's still a lot of work to do. For that, we're working with the University of Waterloo for the statistic research. So we've had a survey that we distributed at first that, helped us, assess what accuracy means, authenticity means. Like, can we have a common understanding of those terminologies? Is there a common understanding of that? How can we tell an AI, that there are all these nuances? So it's a very hard work that the statistics department at the University of Waterloo is supporting with right now, to transform subjective opinions into objective data is actually a great challenge. And we're also working with UKAI projects, because even though the main focus is on the RAG, UKAI projects and also Ryan Killen. So even though the RAG, so retrieval augmented generation framework, so like just a bunch of resources that the AI can tap into is the focus. It also comes a lot into the prompt. So in some ways, I'm a little sad to say it, but in some ways, the way we're using to combat bias is by adding other types of bias in hopes that you have a lot of the biases that are encompasses, like as much as we can of what is out there, then maybe it will not be objective. There's no way we're going to be objective, but at least the answers will be tailored and encompass all of those different perspectives that will be embedded in the platform. So additionally, because with the platform, the AI assistant, we won't have all the answers. We'll also need to, stick to sessions like this with the webinars, articles, tutorials, for example, what those words even mean. Like when we talk about representation, accuracy in skin tones, darker skin tones, lighter skin tones, fair, like we're just a small group of people participated, about 20 people participated in that first focus group. But that understanding of those words, even though we see them every day, we see them out there, like all those, companies telling, oh, our cameras is so accurate, like finally you'll get authentic representation. What does that actually mean? And within that focus group, we noticed that it doesn't mean the same thing for everyone. Even in the survey, we noticed that the survey had about 113 or 112 respondents. Here is just another example of that. Can AI character eliminate real life characters? These are the kind of conversations we are having. So just keeping up to date with the evolutions and trends. So this phase 2 will be about creating those resources. We'll be partnering with researchers, with professionals in the industry. So anyone out there, if you're interested, please reach out. Would love to partner and create resources together. So that's about it. So yeah, if you're interested in interviews, focus groups, surveys, participate in action research projects, advocate, invest in the platform, whatever you think the stage you are in right now, whatever you can afford to contribute, we'll love that. Now,
I definitely think that if they can get away with it, they will replace real people with AI characters.
You think so?
Yeah, if
Well,
they can
well,
get away
well.
with it, yeah. And I think it will encroach on different types of media first. But at the end of the day, it's a movie industry, it's a movie business. They don't care. It's not, we like to dress it up and say it's art and culture. It's not, it's a movie business. We're in it to make money, unless you work for the government in a cultural institution. So you'd be naive to think that anything else but the bottom dollar counts.
Which is why we need unions and guilds to push back.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Like, I mean, if you look at a couple of, I want to say there's a couple of Disney films out there right now that just use AI generated background performers, and they didn't look good. Like, it was not a good look, but the technology is going to get better. And so they're already doing it. And so then you do need organizations, societies, advocacy groups within the industry to push because, yeah, I mean, it is about money at the end of the day. But there is collective power within, the Writers Guild, the Actors Guild, the Directors Guild, but a huge and very real threat within our industry. That's a great point, Marcus.
Louisa, what do you think about the impact of international media on that? So you could say, yes, we have control over Canada. We should definitely push for the right things to do. But what happens when you're now competing against Singapore or some other location? Like, how does that all, I mean,
Yeah, and
who
I
knows
mean
how it'll turn out, but
there are international organizations, for example, FIA, it's like an international Federação Internacional des Acteurs, the International Federation of Actors. I'm so sorry, my pronunciation's not great. And so that is when you bring the different groups from, different countries, different regions to be able to talk about this so that because we might not be seeing the challenge that a different, industry might be seeing with like, and this is why we support it. So then we can bring our context and be like, and this is why we don't, and then work together as opposed to fighting each other. So it is also, because we continue to be more and more globalized, it is also then having these conversations and understanding like, absolutely, this goes beyond Canada. And like, we can try to do what we want to do here. We need a global perspective and we need global alliances in order to be able to, fight this and find a path forward that, works for us as much as we can.
yeah, and we have no excuse really with Zoom and different ways to communicate. We should. So I think what I'm getting from this is we really need to think and work internationally
Yes,
because
agreed.
Yeah.
trying to fight a
Um,
little power struggle in a little country with some studios that have got a lot of power compared to what you have, I think it's as problematic.
Yeah, go ahead, Amanda.
I can say this, sorry. I wanted to say something based on what Luis and Marcus are discussing on how they can push this discussion further because this research was also done here in Tanzania when we were trying to implement the similar campaign. So we just found out that a lot of people are comfortable with what the representations are done, how the media are portraying things, how everyone is already, it's like, I could say like people are already satisfied with what they see every day. So it's time for us to put in something new in their mind. It's like what is not presented is what we don't know. But every time you get something new, every time you get something, I mean, maybe as you say, these Zoom meetings are not limited. They shouldn't end here. Maybe we could push it further and get a lot of people into this sort of discussion, talking about how tones are presented, how kings have to be portrayed. I think with that, it could mean something. But for Africa, I would say from my own country, this conversation is not something we hear every day. It's not something we see every day. So I was very surprised when you asked me, because out of 500 people that are viewing my status, 5,000 people who are following me, none of them has raised any question or any sort of interest in such topic. So I feel like this could be a gap that needs to be filled. We have to let people know that there is more than just black and white. There is more in between. So I think this could be like the first initiative, as you say, Diane, like this is just the first conversation. Just wanted to put this out there.
Thanks, Amanda Renee. This actually connects a lot with one of the questions we have here. So it's sounding like there need to be practices and awareness in communities themselves to bring their own skin tone representation if real individuals are used to model 3D. What can tech companies do to encourage communities of color? Guess that's the question for you, Marcus and Amanda Renee.
I feel like hoping for a tech company to do anything for communities of color is problematic. I certainly wouldn't go there. Um, basically, you've got to do everything you want to do yourself.
Yeah.
You can't expect them to do anything. That's my feeling.
What about you, Amanda?
Yes, I'm not far from what Marcus has just said. It begins with you. If you really feel like there's something needs to be said, as I felt like this is something needs to be addressed, because growing up, I could look at the movies and see like, wow, this woman is really beautiful. I would say it's beautiful based on how they look, based on the color. And I could see like a person that looks like me has shaggy hairs, her tone is not. I will I will judge a person based on what I see. So if personally I feel like this is something we need to talk about, this is something that needs to be heard. It starts with one's own intention. From that end, I feel like more people will talk. We could use these people like the very famous musicians, let's say, because with the campaign we did, we used female film directors, we used models, we used musicians just to put the word out there for people to start having this conversation. But I fear that there is a group that we did not meet with the campaign. That's why it's ongoing over and over. Even recently, if 21st is the Universal Day to End Discrimination, like the race discrimination, we had posted also about this in our social media, trying to have that conversation going, trying to remind people like you don't define yourself from just one color. There is more in between. So as what Marcus said, that's if you feel like there's something you can do, you can start by your own. I mean, it starts with one's own intention. Then there's where we can have the tech company do something, the movie industries do something, the government do something. Yes,
Yeah.
that's it.
As Louise has been pointing out, they'll follow the money. So if you put your eyeballs to what you intend, they'll follow
Exactly.
that money. So
Yes.
basically, it is just within you. Just
Yeah, Amanda Renee, if you have like you're implanted in different countries, like your markets is a whole of Asia as well as Africa. How does that from the readings I've seen that the strategy you're taking has actually helped sustain your presence in different parts of the world as well, like by listening to those needs. Like, could you talk a little more about that?
Okay, for us, Techno Mobile is, I mean, as you say, we're in Asia, we're in Africa, we're in Latin America. So we are trying to merge into the new market. So with this campaign, we're trying to talk about it over and over. And we have used, as I said, different influential people like the musicians, the models, the film directors, trying to have them portray this in the day-to-day one's own conversation. So we believe with this conversation that it will be ongoing. It will be something we'll talk about in our social media. It will be something you see in our mobile devices, something that you see we'll be portraying every day. And that are not the only efforts. Because currently with the tone, I mean, with the True Tone, it's just in the two products. We are trying to see even people who cannot afford these advanced technology products can also get that presentation, can also be able to access the universal tone in the devices. So we are also trying to emerge in the emerging markets because we are now we have this so-called the SSA, like the African market, the Latin American, the Asian market. So as we're trying to chip our product into different markets, I think that this is part for us also to bring in that conversation in that new market.
Thank you, Amanda Renee. Question for Marcus. You mentioned you got deep into AI in 2023. Where did you begin with AI? Where should I start exactly? I use it daily for image generation, asking questions, categorizing, listing, making log lines, treatments, research, etc. How can I make it work for me? Like get deep into the code, build code, an app, etc. Would you recommend Udemy or Skillshare? Courses for beginner to professional development.
funny, I really love Udemy, um, but I wouldn't do it. I think it's past that now. Um, I think just find a task that you really want to do, so you have the passion to get something done, and just sit there with the large language model and have it as your partner. Maybe do a little bit of research into how to use large language models well. I remember last year there was the God prompt, stuff like that. So maybe ask the large language model is the best way to interact with you. because you have to, give it a role, and so it has a certain context to live in, and it will work better. Um, so yeah, and just think of it as a PhD next to you that's going to help you guide yourself through. But you need something that an actual task that you want to get done, or not. You could ask the LLM, okay, tell me what what is a good task for me to learn these skills, and it will probably guide you through. It is a very strange world right now.
Thanks, Marcus. We are reaching the end of our session already. It's been such a pleasure to have you all. Um, I see that Luisa is answering the last question. If you have any last minute questions, we have 3 minutes to answer them if you want to pop them quickly in the Q&A. But just like, like this is a question for everyone in terms of like positive steps that we can, take to move further. We mentioned working together, maybe from, each of your perspective, if you had just like in a few words, something you could share on that. Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
I'm very excited to try and make as many international connections as possible. I think that's something we should prioritize and move as quickly. Um, I'm actually very excited for how ACTRA can connect with others. I think it's a very, very simple um, task, really. Like take them and start making real international progress. For me, I don't see as easy a path, but um, I, th I th I'm very excited for the opportunities there. To make connections in all across the globe, not just Africa, but trying to create some content that's being created and controlled more by a more broad perspective.
Thanks, Marcus. Luisa, maybe?
Yeah, for sure. I think it is that make your voice be heard. If you belong to any sort of organization where if it's a union or guild, you're paying dues into them, make sure that they are hearing your concerns and that you know how they're working on it. Reach out to government, like they are there to serve you. So like reach out to, is it your city councilor? Is it your MPP, MP, MLA? I think another part, but literally that where it is like, I work in this industry. Here are the concerns about it. Like, what are you doing? Because also legislation can play a big part in ensuring that there's fairness, representation, all of these things. And so if they don't hear you, they're not going to do anything about it. And then just finding other groups as well. But, there's a lot of power in the collective. So it doesn't just have to be you. Find groups, organizations, and even just by sharing on social media, if you're following different groups and you're like, oh, they share a lot of interesting things that I didn't know when it comes to skin tone representation. So let me share it so that other people are aware of it. So just try to share as much information as possible and ensure that your voice is being heard by the different groups that you belong to where you can have some influence.
Thanks, Luisa. Amadarenea?
Thank you very much, Diane, for this opportunity. I would say, for my part, I never knew like 1.5 hours could go very fast with this interesting conversation from Louise or from Marcus. I'm glad I've learned a lot from my end, coming from the tech world, from the mobile imaging. As I said before, like, if something, I mean, like, what is not presented is what is not known. So we could try having this conversation further, including other other communities as well. Because for my community, I'll say this is the conversation we need to have every day with different people. As Louisa said, you follow the money. So if you're trying to have the changes be made, it's something that you start with just the conversation. It starts with oneself, and presenting multiple skin tones is just like there is more in between black and white. So we have to see how we're going to have this conversation, how we're going to drive this conversation into something big that's going to make changes for the young ones, for the ones that are coming behind us, to feel like, yes, every tone is presented, every skin matters. So that's it from my end.
Thank you so much. We've reached the end of the session. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. I appreciate your support. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thanks,
Thank
bye.
you so much. Bye bye.
Thanks.